What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Central Florida Sportscast. I am your host, Eduardo, and I am being joined by my co-hosts, the men with the most, Danny and Adam. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
So true.
I'm still trying to figure out what I have the most of.
You know.
The most spirit.
Right now, it's the most confusion.
Ooh, it is the most confusion. It usually is.
It's been a little bit since we've gathered here, boys. The past month and a half has been a little kind of a whirlwind for all of us. I don't know if you guys knew this, but I took a trip to London, and so I was out for a little while, and then we've had all kinds of other stuff. Some of us have children that we have to take care of, and so got all this kind of stuff going on. But we are back, and there have been so many happenings in the Central Florida sports world, and let's just jump right into it. So we're going to start off with some Magic talk because there has been all kinds of stuff happening with the Orlando Magic. Now, I don't know how much stuff you guys have been following and how closely you have been viewing the Magic games, but it has been not a fun time to be a Magic fan. We got Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner back from their injury, but we did lose Jalen Suggs almost immediately as soon as we got those two back. And the Magic dropped a lot of games that they probably should have won. You can, quantify that with any number of excuses, but I think first and foremost, the health really kind of sapped a lot of the energy. Paolo Banchero even, I think, still is maybe like a step behind like athleticism-wise where he was at the beginning of the season because he just does not have the conditioning under him because he took 2 months off. And so he is still like ramping into that same form he had at the beginning of the season. And a lot of stuff. Did you guys catch any of the games over the past kind of like 15 to 20 games? And what are your kind of initial thoughts about at least what had kind of happened prior to the All-Star break?
Well, there was of course that Trailblazers game we watched together.
Oof.
Woof.
Yeah, that was a rough one.
Yeah, I've been noticing that there's just something not clicking with this team right now, even with getting Franz and Paolo back, whether that's a motor question about, like, is this team playing on all cylinders? Are they kind of coasting a little bit? And I'm of the opinion that I don't think we have the shooting to coast. So we've gotten ourselves into some hot water there, have not been playing up to potential. We had a nice win last night against Atlanta with some clutch threes from Cole Anthony down the stretch. But
Paolo Banchero.
And Paolo, yes, which was much needed because up to that point I think we were like 4 for 20 something from three. It was something ridiculous.
We were shooting I think in the first half we had one made three, and it happened with like 10 seconds left in the half, and it was Paolo Banchero who had like a last second three. If not, we would not have made a three an entire half of an NBA game, which is an insane statistic for a team. The most insane part was that we were not like getting blown out. That three put us up 1. Mm-hmm. We were right in that game without having had made an three the whole time, it's insane. So you mentioned the shooting. And obviously the shooting is a big concern right now. It kind of has been for a little bit. But if you were concerned about the shooting, you probably were thinking to yourself, hey, Jeff Weltman, president of basketball operations over at the Orlando Magic, it's time to make a move. We need some shooting. And trade deadline rolls around. No moves were made. Now, I've got my opinions on the kind of trade deadline and everything, but I want to hear what you guys think first. What do you guys think about Orlando not making a move at the deadline and kind of standing pat?
I was more upset in the moment than I am now. I think that it's hard to watch teams around you get better, knowing that your team could do the same thing, but are just not. And now looking back, I'm kind of the opinion of maybe there wasn't a deal that, Jeff Weltman liked. Maybe teams were asking too much. Maybe, they were asking for some core pieces that Jeff Weltman sees as part of this future for this team, and that he wasn't just ready to pull that trigger. That deal didn't move the needle enough for him. which is kind of hard to take as a fan because we've kind of shown like what the ceiling of this Magic team is without shooting. Which, granted, players are going to develop. We're going to get better over time. We're still a young team. All of that is still true. But I think that I'm more okay with it now than I was. I was very upset at the trade deadline, kind of wishing they would have done something. But I've had time to reflect on it a little bit. And I'm going to give Jeff Weltman the benefit of the doubt here for not making a move.
Yeah, it's like we've talked about previously. It's been a hard season to kind of evaluate what pieces are going to be, there in the future. So rather than rush something, it's, see how the rest of the season plays out as your top two guys get back into game shape and see where they can take you with this team as it is. And then you can really evaluate, okay, these are the weak players. This is like the extraneous. We can chip these guys off, make that consolidation trade that's been floating around everybody's minds here, and maybe make a move in the off season. I don't remember offhand any big free agents coming up, but maybe position yourself to attract a name, a few stars, or complementary players that can elevate the 3-point shooting and still fit in with the defensive culture of the team as it is now. So I agree with you, Adam. It is kind of frustrating. You're just like watching, oh, okay, you could have got Luka for pennies.
That's not fair, though. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying, like, you can see the moves that other teams are making, and of course, we clown on Lakers fans with their ridiculous trades. Apparently, it works in real life.
You can just do it. If you're a Lakers fan, you get everything handed to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Luka for pennies was crazy. I, too, would have traded Memphis' head coach to the Lakers to get Luka.
I want to throw some things at you guys to kind of show you where I was at
London,
as far as the trade deadline is concerned. Like Adam, my initial impression was one of anger. Not because I necessarily even thought we needed a move, mostly because I was tired of watching bad basketball, and I didn't want to keep watching bad basketball, and I needed something to be angry at. And I think that's kind of where most Magic fans sit right now, if they really are honest with themselves. We have seen less than 5 games of Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Jalen Suggs playing together. You're 3 guys who are 2 of them are making max money. The other one is making near max at $30 million a year. If your top 3 players are not on the court together for 95% of your season, it then becomes really difficult to evaluate the players around them, because the players around them are now playing out of position and are being tasked with doing more than what you've kind of intended. You also are not necessarily seeing the team at its best effort, because during the time that Paolo and Franz were out, everybody else was sort of straining themselves and like burning themselves out, trying to kind of keep up the gap. Whereas Paolo and Franz coming back needed to become reconditioned. And while Franz Wagner has gotten, off to a really great start back from injury, it's taken Paolo a few games and he's still not like 100%, it feels like. I'll also throw this at you. The notable names that Magic fans, and I think people in general, wanted for Orlando included Anthony Simons, Cam Johnson, Colin Sexton. I mean, you could throw in even a name like, who was the dude from Phoenix? Not Booker. Grayson Allen. Give me another name. Who else was the Magic looking at? Cam Thomas even? None of those guys moved. None of those guys went anywhere. And so if you're the Magic and those are the kind of players that you're targeting and they did not move, it tells you one of 2 things. 1, they didn't want to move them, or 2, the asking price was too high. And I think it's the second one. I think in business and in sports, you are at your worst when you are trading away your players when they are at their least value. And right now, because of the Magic's kind of skid into the All-Star break, every player had the least amount of value possible, and you were going to get pennies on the dollar for players that can play up like better than they've been doing. You can't trade everybody on your team when everyone on your team is shooting well below their career average. You can't do that because then you're going to like these guys they're NBA players. They're going to bounce back. They're not all going to shoot under their career averages forever. Obviously, it is really difficult to watch, especially right now. But you have to be able to kind of separate and be like, hey, there are more things moving around here than would have solved the Magic's problem. I don't think, personally, that the Magic's problems would be solved with just one shooter or perhaps even two shooters, because I think there's enough people that have shooting gravity on the team that it shouldn't necessarily be as big of a problem as it is. The problem is that, one, your shooters are not making their shots, and that's its own problem. I've been pulling my hair out every time I watch KCP shoot a three. It's been very frustrating. Wendell Carter Jr. going from a 37% three-point shooter to a sub-30. Jonathan Isaac going from a 37% shooter to sub-30. Anthony Black going from a 39% to a sub-30. Like, these are guys that... And Anthony Black, I think, is kind of unfair in there. Gary Harris, again, don't even get me started on Gary Harris. But I was going to say, you
can just say that name, just Gary Harris.
All of these guys are shooting well below their career averages. And no one's going to trade for these guys. Who wants it? If you don't want these guys on your team, why would anyone else want them? And so, here's what I want to bring up. Gary Harris, Cole Anthony, Wendell Carter Jr. People wonder why, one, Wendell Carter Jr. is in the starting lineup over Goga Bitadze, why we're not sitting guys like Gary Harris and KCP when they have bad games, and I will tell you why. Because you need them to perform well. You need them to continue to play and to continue to perform well, because if you do want to include them in a trade, they need to be assets and not things that you need to attach a pick for someone else to take. And to do that, they need playing time. They need to be on the court. You need them to perform well. And the only way you're going to do that is if they are on the court and they work through whatever issues they're going on.
Absolutely. Basketball. I'm thinking I've got baseball in my mind. Basketball is a game of rhythm, and you have to get the reps, and sometimes you have to suffer and struggle through the slump and shoot your way out of it. A vote of no confidence, putting them on the bench, isn't going to do anything for their shooting. It's not going to magically fix their shooting motion. It's not going to magically increase the three-point percentage. They have to shoot their way out of it, and it's a tough process to watch. As you said, watching KCP chuck up a three, and I'm holding my breath thinking, is it going to click? Is he going to get back to his career numbers? And he hasn't yet. And it's rough to watch, but you can't sit him on the bench because that's also not productive. He's not going to get any better doing that either.
It's a really difficult position for the Magic to be in, but the reason I don't think one or two trades is going to magically fix the shooting woes of the Magic is because, and I wrote a little article about this because it had been sitting in my brain for months, and I needed to get it out there. The Magic will not become at least a serviceable shooting team until their two stars become serviceable shooters themselves. They are the ones taking the most shots. They're the ones dictating the flow of the game. They're the ones that people are double and triple teaming as soon as they get into the post. You want people to respect the team in the way that they're able to shoot? You need to be able to shoot yourself. Okay, hang on. Let's just... hang on just a second. You need to be able to shoot the ball yourself. And I think that is something that Magic fans have trouble grasping with, because you have these young stars. You don't want to push them away. You don't want to tell them, hey, you're not good enough or whatever. But right now, Paolo and Franz, as far as their shooting is concerned, their three-point shooting is not where it needs to be. And the team will not be able to reach that next level until the two of them become threats from the three-point range. And I don't mean they need to be 50%, 49, 40 even. They need to be league average. That is all they need, I think. I truly think that as long as they are league average and as long as you need to defend them at the three-point line, you will be able to open kind of everything else up for this team. The numbers are there. Anytime Paolo or Franz scores over league average from three, we win. I think it's like a 3-1 average. I had the percentages in the article, but I'll link it in the description of the podcast. But we are significantly better when just one of them is shooting league average. And I will tell you, the amount of games that the both of them shoot league average is single digits. It is single digits. That means that we do not often get games where both Paolo and Franz are shooting at least league average from three. If we had any of those very often, imagine how transformative it would be for the offense. You can't have your two stars both be 3-point detriments. And so both Paolo and Franz, I think, need to take a summer and kind of work on that 3-point shot and make sure it's better. And I think this was going to be the season where they kind of turned that around. It felt like at the beginning of the season they had both really worked on it over the offseason. And then they both had these weird oblique injuries that kind of took them out for a really long time. And now we're kind of at the other end of that. And so it makes sense to me that Jeff Weltman would kind of say, hey, let's hang on a second. We don't even know what's going on with these guys yet. We need to be able to see what they can do before we can make really true adjustments.
No, I agree completely. There's still unknown entities in how they're going to play and what pieces they need around them. If they both develop a 3-point shot, a priority shift a little bit, they can create space for themselves. Shooting becomes less of a concern. Now you kind of shift to, you want a big inside that they can feed into. Their development drives the narrative of what this team needs. And I think that it's unfair to judge their development this year just based on the injuries that this team has suffered through.
It's tough because
I'd
I think...
imagine that.
I know. It's
injury.
It sounds like you're singing...
I'd imagine oblique injury was going to affect your shooting.
It sounded like you were singing the Beatles for a second. It's like, imagine the oblique injury.
Octopus's Garden, indeed.
I will say, I think Jamal Mosley has done a better job as of late getting Paolo Banchero the kind of buckets that he needs to kind of get back into form. It felt like for a while there, and it was like that for like lots of games where they were just like, Paolo, you're going to ISO your way out of this. You're going to ISO your way out of this, Paolo. You're going to ISO your way out of this. And then they started just last game against the Hawks running Paolo as the roll man on the pick and roll, and he is just rolling to the rim every time. And Paolo in movement is kind of Zion Williamson-esque in that you can't stop him. I think Paolo is Zion with more finesse but less physicality. He's still tremendously physical, but he is not the freight train that Zion Williamson is. Zion Williamson is like, I need to move out of the way or else I'm going to be bodily injured. But Paolo is in a similar build in that he has enough finesse that if you are trying to body him, he will finesse his way around you. And if you are trying to kind of play a little bit more technical, or like smaller, quicker, he can body you through and, create contact and get the shot. And I think doing that in motion has helped him a lot because right now teams are so loaded up in the paint because everybody knows we can't, throw a rock into the ocean. And so they are just bodying and walling up the paint. And so I think getting him more reps like that is going to kind of continue and help his game a little bit.
I agree completely. And Eduardo, offline, you and I have discussed our disdain for the kind of ISO basketball the Magic were playing for the longest time, where it felt like one player would dribble the shot clock down to like 7, and then they would throw it to Paolo or Franz and say, okay, figure it out. And they would just have to go ISO and chuck up a shot. And it was just very frustrating basketball to watch.
It does feel like they are doing that less. It does feel like they are starting to think a little bit more about those second and third actions, or at the very least getting a quality shot up, even if it doesn't go in. And I think I am okay. I would much rather have a middle of the shot clock good shot than a late shot clock bad shot. Does that make sense?
Yep. No, I agree completely.
Like, there are several times where I'll see people being like, why did this person shoot this 3? Or why did this person shoot this? And I'm like, look, that is the shot the defense is giving you. And so it's really strange. I'm not really 100% sure how to segue this because I had to read a text message and now my brain's all scrambled. Back into the Magic. So the next 26 games was the last games of the season, and now they're 25 because right now the Magic have won that first game against Atlanta, and they are currently playing the Memphis Grizzlies, and they are up 12 with 3:26 to go in the third. Hopefully they hang on for a victory there. This is going to really kind of be instrumental for the Magic leading into the offseason. What do you guys think? One, what are your predictions for kind of how Orlando's going to end up to finish the season off? Do they make the postseason? Do they make it to the second round of the postseason? And what do you guys think is going to be sort of the tone if the Magic do well and if the Magic don't do well?
I think that if the Magic don't do well, I do not trust this fan base to not lose their absolute minds. I think that they kind of have gotten the taste of the postseason the 1 year, and they're like, okay, that's the standard. And I think if you are a reasonable Magic fan, you can say things like, with all of these injuries, it was an uphill battle. They barely missed the play-in, not the season we wanted, but given everything that happened, it's still, screw it, we roll, we keep going next season. I feel like there's going to be a lot of pressure from the fan base to make some changes, and I don't think that the changes will actually happen. I just think there's going to be a lot of like unrest in the fan base, if that makes sense. I mean, we saw that, and we see that with fan bases all the time. When you have expectations and they're not met, it's almost worse than being a bad team, because when you're a bad team, you can say like, oh well, we're building, and people are very much in a mindset of, okay, well we have to make the playoffs and we have to do this X, Y, and Z. And I think the Magic are going to make the playoffs. Right now we are in control of the 7 seed. Am I correct in thinking
You're
that?
in control of the 7 seed, and we're
Yeah. So I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, 7, 8, 9, 10 are play-in.
7, 8, 9, 10 are playing, yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, 11's the Sixers. We have an 8-game lead on them. 11's the Sixers. We're right there with the Heat and the Hawks, the Bulls. I think we're a much better team than the Bulls. I don't see the Bulls catching us. I think we, you know what? I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to say that we overtake the Pistons and we finish the season as the 6.
Yeah, I'd say knock on wood. There's not another oblique injury affecting somebody else on the team. I think that they're gonna make the postseason. I would agree with that. I think probably 6 would be the highest finish that I can see. But I also don't see them falling out of the play-in.
Yeah, I think at the worst they'll be a play-in team. I think there is a chance they could sneak their way into as high as perhaps the 5th seed. But, I can understand where Magic fans would have some, be kind of upset about that, especially if you're looking at, the expectations for the beginning of the season versus where we are now. But you have to be realistic about all of the injuries and everything. I need to be very blunt about this. People that are comparing what San Antonio did with pairing De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama and then using that to be like, see, you need to pair your young star with talent around them to make them improve. I think that's nonsense. First off, De'Aaron Fox asked out, and he said, I will play in San Antonio. And then he tied the arms of the Sacramento Kings organization behind their backs to say, I'm not really going to play anywhere for San Antonio. And so they made the trade, and they traded him there. If we can find somebody who's going to do that to, hamstring the franchise that they're on to come over here, great, sure. I don't think that's actually happening, and I don't think that's a realistic move. 2, I think we also still need to be realistic about who this team is and how young this team is. Paolo and Franz are 22 and 23 years old. They are not close to the primes of their careers yet. This is not the time to start making all of these jumps and additions and subtractions and moving everything around. We don't even know who these guys are yet. Not really. We are very lucky that they were able to get to the playoffs last year and that they are the quality of players that they are. However, you can't rush it. I truly believe that you can't rush this. I think it's going to be a year or two longer than most Magic fans want until this team kind of takes that next step. And I get being like, I have PTSD just like other Magic fans. I get it. The last 10 years have been rough. They have been a really rough time. And then before that, you had the Dwight Mayer nonsense. And then before that, you had T-Mac and Grant Hill's knee exploding. And then before that, you had, and then Tim Duncan not being allowed on the plane. And then before that, you had Shaq leaving when him and Penny were here. Like, it has been a really rough go of it if you're a Magic fan. A lot of really promising teams ending up really, really poorly. And so I understand the fear of Magic fans to want to kind of make sure we don't lose this, but you can't panic. You cannot panic when you have a down season. We all knew that progress is not linear, that it is not, you can't just like immediately toss a GM or toss a coach whenever something doesn't go your way. I think that's something that sports fans need to perhaps take a step back on. I also think front office need to step back on firing every coach every time there's a bad season and not actually blaming the players that you have assembled. And that's for all sports. But yeah, it's a tough time. I think the Magic make the playoffs. I think they can make it as high as the 5 seed, but they have to really, truly lock in. And we have to get Jalen Suggs back soon. Because if he's not back soon, I think that really changes the dynamic of this team. I think he is a really, really, really important player defensively. I think he's a really important player energy-wise. And I think without him, we start to kind of lose that identity. Especially now that Mo Wagner is not going to be here this season. We need energy on this team right now. We don't have it. And you need Jalen Suggs for that, especially if you're not going to have Mo Wagner. So let's get into some really happy talk. Let's talk UCF.
Yeah, it's been a rough go for basketball in Orlando, just in general.
Yeah.
UCF basketball, despite our pleas to them, they have decided that they're comfortable down at 14th in the conference. They are currently 4-11 in conference play, which does put them down in the cellar. Looking at the net rankings, they are down to 80. They were flirting with the low 70s, which is pretty much right on that NCAA tournament bubble. If they had a few games had gone differently, maybe they'd be in the conversation still. But as of now, looking like they're going to be missing out on the NCAA tournament. They're 1-9 in the last 10 games, so it's been rough. I will say they have five games left in the season to turn things around. The games are all against teams that are right around middle to lower half of the Big 12 standings. So they can gain ground, maybe get a little bit better seeding for the Big 12 tournament, which they're going to have to make some noise there. They probably have to win and get the automatic qualifier spot to make the tournament, unless they look really impressive. But there's it's the double-edged sword. Like, the games are going to be on paper easier to win, but that means that they're not really impressive for the resume. So they've kind of missed their chance to make a statement with some big wins. But like I said, if they end up somehow making it through the tournament and winning, they'll get an automatic qualifier spot. So it's we had we didn't need them to be top of the conference. We said if you can get middle of the pack, get a few statement wins in that tough conference, maybe they'll have a resume worth considering. But it's unfortunately not looking like that's going to be happening. But it is spring. Well, as far as academic calendar is concerned, it is spring, which means that it is ball and stick season. And Adam, I'm not sure if you're saying anything, but I can't hear you.
No, every season's ball and stick season at the Belva household.
But baseball is 4-0. That season has just started. They swept Siena and just beat Missouri yesterday.
To add on to that, not only did they beat Siena, swept them in a 3-game series, and beat Missouri, but outscored 47-6 in those 4 games. UCF absolutely dominated these games. They are currently playing Bryant right now. I have the game up on in the background. I'm dual boxing with a little NBA action. They are currently down to Bryant, 6-4, top of the 9th. So here's hoping they can score some runs and make it 5-0.
And then softball they're 9-5-1. They are not ranked, but they are in the receiving votes section of the poll. So they are, I guess, about 29th if you were to give those teams rankings. It's all arbitrary anyway, We have the top 25, but if people are still getting votes, why not you just expand it out, rank them all? Whatever. That's doesn't matter. But yeah, I think that obviously scoring 46 runs in 4 games it's a good sign. You got some good bats in the lineup. Now, granted, Siena is not top competition, but Missouri is a SEC team, so that was a good win to pick up for sure. But yeah, we'll see. We will keep our eyes on these teams and provide updates throughout the seasons, and see where they end up in the postseason. Fingers crossed that the spring sports bring a little bit more joy to the UCF campus and more success to the athletic program. And then, I don't know, we're getting close to spring ball for football, and we'll see if there is a spring game. It seems to be a trend. A few programs have canceled their spring games now. USC, who else was it? Texas? Did Texas cancel?
Yeah, I think Texas canceled theirs.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's getting off topic here. That's very sad because the spring game is just one of those like college football traditions. It's been kind of, I don't know, I've seen a lot of changes over the last few years with how the games are run. Sometimes instead of a traditional game, it's more of like a drill, like exhibition drills and stuff. So just showcasing the teams without actually playing, but you have the coaches trying to balance, providing that element for the fans, where there's something they can come out and see, support the team, get to know some of the new names and faces, see how the young players are progressing. And now the reason behind these schools canceling their games is like, well, we don't want to give other schools the opportunity to scout our guys and steal them in the transfer portal. So it's just another. I hadn't even considered that as part of the ripple effect of all these changes happening in college football. But I really hope that this is not how things are going to continue. I hate seeing college football lose those elements that make it unique, and I don't want to see it just become a minor league for the NFL. There's just too much tradition and all the pageantry and all the things that make it unique. I don't want those to go away.
Do you guys think there's a problem with like sports leagues in general, like everyone wanting to play less games, and like, I mean, it's not the exact example that you gave here, but it feels like more and more people are only interested in the big game, and so the games don't matter. It feels like the games don't matter as much if you don't win the trophy at the end.
Mm-hmm.
No, I've been watching some Premier League, and I'm not sure how familiar I know, Adam, you are. I don't know how familiar you are with it, Danny, but they don't have like a playoffs over there.
Right.
Whoever has the most points at the end of the season, they win.
Yeah.
And so it makes it so like every game is important. And I've got like, there are like pros and cons to that. kind of system. It's not necessarily as dramatic, especially towards the end of a season,
Right.
and you can really predict who's going to, like, it feels like Liverpool has kind of got it running away this year, and it is up to them to kind of lose it to Arsenal if they do. But do you guys think there's an issue with that? I feel like take the NBA All-Star game, it feels like there are a lot of situations like this now where people are just kind of like taking less games out of, because they're like low risk scenarios. I feel like such an old head saying this, but it feels like people aren't like, they don't like love the game anymore,
Yeah.
What happened to the game I love? I kind of want to exclude like All-Star game conversation from like a workload management. These athletes are pushing themselves. Some of them are pushing themselves in the regular season. But I think that the way we have the sports system set up, and college football is kind of moving towards this, which I'm not a huge fan of, is there is that one obtainable goal, that one prize, the national championship. Every team strives to obtain this. I am a fan of an SEC school. I like the Arkansas Razorbacks. They, you can laugh, legitimately have a chance for that national championship every year. They could win it. They win their games. They could make that the tournament. They can make the 12-team playoff and win a national championship. I'm also a fan of Old Dominion University. That is not going to make the tournament. Is not going to make the 12-team playoff. They could, but they don't have the resources to do that. So success as a fan for the team for Old Dominion and success for the University of Arkansas are two different things. And I think we look at this big picture of the trophy as the only thing that determines success of a season. And I don't think that that's the case. When you look at, like, you brought up the Premier League, and we could even go into like smaller divisions of soccer in England. They're just, if they beat their rivals and they have a decent season, that's a success. Fans are happy about that. They can flip off their neighbors, and because they support the other team and they had a good year, they brought them a couple of good memories. They're not going to win the Premier League. I will be in the ground before Middlesbrough wins the Premier League. I think they're in League One or League Two. They're not going to win the Premier League. But the fans, those matches that they play are just as important to those fans as a Liverpool-Manchester City match this weekend or a Liverpool-Arsenal match. So I think as fans, it kind of the onus is on us for how we determine what success looks like. Because not every team, every team can win every, blah, 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 blah. Every college basketball team can win the NCAA tournament. Technically, that's true. But the resources are pitted against some teams. So you have to find wins and happiness where you can.
Yeah, Danny, as a Patriots, Red Sox, Celtics, Lightning, and Florida Gators fan, how do you feel about people overvaluing championships and flaunting championships?
Well, I was going to actually I was going to say I am very lucky that I've been blessed with a lot of success, watching my teams growing up and even into adulthood. I have very fond memories of seasons that do not end with rings or trophies. Right now, Florida basketball is having a tremendous season. And it reminds me when I was in school, um, there was a Final Four team, which they did not win the whole thing, but it was still like it was great regular season, had a lot of high profile games I got to go to on campus. Um, some, had just I remember I went to Tampa to go to a Lightning game. Um, I think it was the SEC tournament was going on, and my friend and I went to a bar before the game to hang out, eat wings, watch the Gator game on TV before going to watch the Lightning. So it's like it's like you said, you got to find the joy in sports like outside of the championships. I think sports, like the media, the commentary that surrounds it all is very annoying. It seems to be just like, again, like you said, Eduardo, I feel like an old head saying this, but it's just like it's just like, oh, it's getting worse and worse. It's always about rings and aura, and it's like, well, there's just so much more to it. It's a competition. It's you have these athletes competing at the highest level of like the sport, and it's the regular season games. Maybe if you take one random NBA game, it's not going to mean a lot in the grand scheme of a season, but it's an opportunity to watch these players. And if it's a team that you follow, you've been following for years, there's storylines there for you. It's like, okay, how are these young guys coming along? Like, this was our top draft pick a few years ago, and now he's like he's a star in the making. You've been watching him improve year after year. It's like, is he going to take a leap? Is he going to lead this team? Is he? I don't know. There's a lot more to it than the ultimate prize at the end of the season. Um, and I don't know. I get annoyed reading people on Twitter, which is my fault. I should probably just not be reading what
Yeah.
these people have to
Yeah.
say. Um, but it's. I think there are good. Um, there's obviously like good writers and reporters out there and good commentators, but it seems like the stuff that you see the most is just the like First Take or Nick Wright, just the most obnoxious, just saying whatever because they know it's going to get views and retweets and stuff.
Some people might be upset about this, but I would add the TNT guys onto there too.
Yeah, it's
Shaq and Chuck just never say a positive thing ever.
yeah, it's like the old guys just don't want to, give credit to the current players. They're like, well, back in my day.
And I think that the formula exists there with that show, about NBA on TNT, to feel like you're in a barbershop, like just, interacting with people and talking and, really like shooting the shit and talking sports. And it's become so negative, and I think people forget that this is supposed to bring you joy.
Yeah.
At a point that I was making with this, and I've been thinking about it with, kind of the places that some of my teams are at right now. I grew up a DC sports fan. For the most part, I'm a huge Nationals, Capitals fan. The Capitals are having a surprising season, but at the beginning of the year, I was just watching every game to see Ovechkin break the record. So there's always these storylines that are not about wins or losses. The Capitals could lose every game the rest of the year, and the game that Ovechkin breaks the record, this is a great season. It's the best, other than them winning the Stanley Cup. It's probably like 1B, like real close behind it. And I think that, you have to find those storylines in sports. Otherwise, you're going to be miserable. Which brings me to my ultimate point about sports and its enjoyment. Be a hater. It's so much fun to just be a hater. Just pick a team that you hate and just hate them.
Yeah, I mean, the team that I picked to hate just got given Luka Doncic. So
yeah,
what do you want from me?
There's not much you can do about that. But like, I love the fact my wife's from Tennessee. My wife's family, I think a few of them listen. They're all big Tennessee Volunteers fans. My college ex-girlfriend was also a Tennessee Volunteer. I have this thing for Tennessee girls for some reason. I don't know how that keeps happening to me. It's a curse. I'm trying to help me, please. But when Tennessee loses, it's almost better than Arkansas winning. And when Arkansas beats Tennessee, I like light a victory cigar. It's the best feeling in the world. Just be a hater. Just hate. And, don't take it too far. Don't like pick fights on the internet, but be a hater. Just wake up and say, you know what? I hope the Yankees lose 100 games this year. And when they lose, celebrate.
I do.
That's my PSA. Be a hater.
Those well-trimmed, bearded Yankees.
Like, imagine being a Mavs fan. If I was a Mavs fan, I would take having Luka on my team and not winning a championship, but having a player break all these kinds of records and be such a dynamic guy that wants to be part of the city over a rental of Anthony Davis that maybe brings them a championship. Even if he did, say he did bring them a championship, I don't think that championship would mean as much as it would having Luka there for his whole career. I mean, like, it's obviously not a one-to-one scenario, but Dirk Nowitzki, right? This guy played for one team. He played for the Dallas Mavericks. He was the Dallas Mavericks, and he never went anywhere else. It's also like a very European style of, like, I come to this team, I am now a part of this team forever. You don't see that too much over here because of ring chasing culture and all that, but it does feel like it's becoming a little bit more prevalent over here, especially with the new CBA. But imagine that, like, I don't think I would not enjoy that. Yeah, there would be like a bitterness to that kind of championship. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm looking over, and I'm in my office, and I'm looking, and I have a framed picture or a framed jersey from Ovechkin, and it has every player that was on that 2019 Stanley Cup team or 2018 Stanley Cup team. And I think that year we went out and got one player at the deadline, and it was a defensive player. But for the most part, all of those players had been there for multiple years and had lost in the playoffs multiple times. And, there's something so sweet about winning with a group of players that means so much to the city. And especially with like a player like Ovechkin, which I'm assuming Mavs fans felt the same way, where it's like that's your guy. Yeah. Like they're going to have a golden statue of Ovechkin outside of the Capitals arena, and as they should. There should have been a statue of Luka outside of, is it American Airways Arena? I don't know where the Mavs play, but it's so much sweeter to have players that legitimately want to be there and not just like, oh, I got moved here, so like this is my team for a couple of years. I might win a ring, I might not. Rather than like, we drafted this guy, he was our guy.
Yeah, you believe in them. You create these. I mean, those are the real great stories, and it's just really difficult. I mean, I would genuinely, if I was a Mavericks fan, I would just stop watching the NBA. I'd be like, I've had enough. I wouldn't be able to do it. I just wouldn't be able to do it.
It's painful to think about, like waking up,
my God,
whatever, like that Saturday or Sunday morning. You're like, what? They did what?
Yeah, they did what? Who? They traded who?
They did what? To where? And I can't imagine like being a kid in Dallas and just like, well, first of all, way to cultivate a entire generation of Lakers haters. I'm about that life.
Genuinely. Or, honestly, maybe even a generation of Lakers fans who are going to be like, why would I stick with this team when I could go watch Luka on another team? Like, I think you just maybe also created a generation of Mavericks haters.
Yeah.
But we've got more Orlando, Central Florida sports to talk about because tomorrow, the 22nd, probably by the time you're listening to this, it'll be the day of the match. Orlando City's season is beginning. There have been all kinds of moves, all kinds of things. Adam, let's get the primer. Orlando City, 2025, 2026. Let's go.
Let's go. MLS season is back.
Actually, I don't know if it goes into 2026. Does MLS?
It does not.
2025 only.
2025 season. Which, you know what? I was actually going to save that for later, but let's talk about it now.
Yeah.
So MLS is debating moving to the European calendar. So games would start in like September, October and run through like April. How do you guys feel about that? Lining up with like how the rest of the world does soccer. I kind of want to lay out my case and hear what you guys have to think. It's great for us here in Orlando where, you know, December we'll have games in the 50s, 60 degrees. Tomorrow, first kick, it's supposed to be in like the mid 50s. It's going to be great soccer weather. Sun's going to be shining. But I'm thinking about those teams up in New York, Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver. I'm thinking about Orlando having to travel to play in the snow in December in Vancouver where it's 15 degrees. And I'm also thinking about soccer having to compete with the NFL and college football on Saturdays and Sundays. And I think that although moving the calendar will give us a competitive edge. I think soccer is still growing in this country, and I don't think it's going to usurp football, American football in this country. So I think that it is smart to have the calendar where it is. Right now, you're competing with the NBA, which there's a segment of the population that will not watch the NBA no matter what. And that's cool. That's their prerogative. They do what they want to do. There's hockey and baseball starting up. So when the season's in the middle of its form for MLS, all that's on is baseball. And I think MLS can go one-on-one with baseball. Because you have 162 games. If you miss one game to go to a soccer match, who cares? You can go to the next 180 home games. So I am actually one of the rare people that is anti-moving the calendar. I just don't think it's going to be beneficial in the long run. I think MLS needs to do its own thing, needs to stick to where it is, and just continue to grow the game organically the way it has been. Love to hear your guys' thoughts, though.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's like, why are you choosing to go up against football? Like, it's called American football. You're playing soccer in America. The NFL is like a juggernaut, and then college football is a mini juggernaut. It's like, don't shoot yourself in the foot just to line up with the rest of the world.
And the NFL is not going to play nice. I mean, we've known that.
No.
The NBA has always been a Christmas thing. NBA games on Christmas Day. And then the NFL decided, you know what? We're going to put a game on Christmas, see what happens. And the NFL season keeps stretching out. And the draft combine happens. And they start televising the combine. And they start televising, the draft drags on. And the NFL has done almost meticulously and methodically where they have carved out the full year. There is no off season for the NFL anymore. They don't play games, but in terms of like news cycle, the NFL is always on.
Yeah. It was. I saw somebody say that. Oh, well, the Christmas game was on Netflix, so you can't have, if you're watching on Netflix, you can't just flip over to the other channel to see how the basketball game's going. Like, you are on Netflix. This is very, very calculated, diabolical.
I would also add, Adam, one, I can't think of the logistics of how they would actually do this. How do you do this? How do you you just take a year off? Do you have a weird middle year?
So kind of what the proposal is, because the 2026 World Cup is going to be played on the continent of North America, Canada, USA, Mexico. We have the next World Cup. So the thought is that what would happen is after this 2025 season, they would kind of make an elongated off season. So instead of having like a 3-month off season, it would be like a 15-month off season, and they would start in the next window. So the normal season for 2025 would end in like October or November. And then instead of starting back up in February, March, they would kick that into like September or October. So punt it a few months down the line, because in the summer they're going to be taking off anyway because the World Cup is here, and most leagues don't. You don't play games while the World Cup's going on. That is the priority.
I think I would also. I mean, and you mentioned competing with the NFL. I think you would also compete with the Premier League and La Liga and every other major soccer league. Like, I understand the idea of there being soccer and, there being, kind of lining up with the rest of the world. But also, MLS is, we have to be honest about what it is right now. And as of right now, it is an alternative. It is an alternative to the sport. You have not necessarily gotten all of America on board yet. And you don't necessarily have everybody else in the world on board yet either. The trouble is that in the other countries, people will go to any game of any size no matter what. And in MLS, we don't have that yet. We don't have the type of deep-seated culture that other clubs have. I don't know if you guys knew this, but I went to London recently, and I got to watch a match
Ontario?
Yes, Ontario. I got to watch a match in I got to watch a match over in whatchamacallit, in the UK in London, and it was Leyton Orient versus Everton, and it was a very thrilling match. It was, I think, a sold-out crowd of 7,000. It was not the largest stadium in the world. It was not, but it seemed like this is what everybody in that town does. And that type of thing that, the Leyton Orient has been around for I think since the 1700s. They're like a crazy, they've been around for maybe the 1800s, but they've been around for a really, really long time. They're one of the oldest clubs in England. And that type of deep-seated culture and going out to these games isn't there yet. So if you have American fans, and I think this is a popular sentiment in America, if you have American fans that are going to choose between watching the Premier League and watching MLS, and those are the only, you have to choose one of them at a time, they're going to watch the Premier League. That's just the reality of where we are right now. If you have to choose between the two, I think a lot of fans are going to choose the Premier League because it is, in a lot of ways, more exciting, at least as it stands right now.
I think, the pitch is that the Premier League games with the time zone differences would be over in the morning because those games kick off at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time. And then your MLS games wouldn't start until 1 o'clock Eastern. So you would go to the bar, you go to the pub, watch the Premier League match while you pregame and then go to your MLS game, which is a novel idea. But you know what else happens at 1 o'clock on Sundays in America? NFL games kick off.
Yeah. Also, people have lives. What do you mean? What do you mean? You expect them to be at a pub 7-8 hours to watch two different? What do you That doesn't. Be realistic about your situation and the situation and everything else. Adam, I want to talk to you about one thing once again before we even get into the Orlando City primer. USL has been doing some really, really interesting stuff. So Danny, I don't know if you knew this, but the USL is Orlando's other, or not Orlando, but the United States other soccer league. You can think of it as it's like minor soccer league. It is where a lot of teams have kind of taken promotion and been promoted to the MLS. Not necessarily promotion, but they have moved to the MLS when the MLS has gotten certain expansions and things like that. Famously, the United States does not have a promotion and relegation system. However, just recently, the USL has instituted a 3-tiered league system, 4-tiered actually, where they've got the USL, just underneath it they have the USL Championship, USL League 1, and then USL League 2. And they are also, they have reached out and they have an application into, is it FIFA? They have an application with to become a Division 1 soccer league. So that would match up the same type of league that MLS is. It would be the same type of league like the Premier League is, La Liga, all of these top shelf teams, and they would be a competitor to MLS. Really interesting stuff. In a perfect world for me, what I want to see happen is either they combine or USL becomes the lower league and we add in promotion relegation. I understand that is a tall task for the United States because it is so spread out, but wouldn't that add so much more excitement to the game?
I think, so first of all, I love the idea of what USL is doing. MLS is going to fight tooth and nail to prevent them from getting Division 1 status, just because that's their main competition. In an ideal world, we would have a merger. That's kind of what I want to see happen. ABA, NBA, AFL, NFL, that kind of, let the USL take off. Because what's happening is the USL exists in markets where the MLS would never put a team. There's a USL team in Albuquerque, New Mexico United that I follow. There's one in Tulsa. There's one in Omaha, Northwest Arkansas, Fayetteville, where the University of Arkansas is getting a USL team next year. So you go to these smaller markets. Memphis has a USL team. You go to these smaller markets that MLS has overlooked, and the USL is saying, no, you could support a soccer team. You have the population, you have the fan interest, you have the support. Las Vegas, if you guys haven't looked into the USL team in Las Vegas, I implore you to do so. It is the craziest. Some of the fans dress up like Elvis. After one of the matches a few years ago, they dropped $500,000 out of a helicopter. They they had a helicopter right above the pitch and let all the fans go onto the field and just started throwing money out of the helicopter. It's crazy. The whole system is crazy. But I would love to see USL kind of push MLS to some of these smaller markets and integrating some of these teams into the system. As much as I would love to see promotion and relegation, I'm a realist. I don't think the MLS owners will allow that to happen. I think they'll say, we didn't sign up for this. I signed up to own a professional team, and I paid $500 million to own a professional sports team in this country. And we don't have that history of promotion and relegation. Because we see it too in Europe, where a bunch of teams a few years ago, your Liverpools, Arsenals, Manchester Cities, Barcelonas, Real Madrids of the world got together and said, what if we leave all these other teams and just create a European Super League? And they tried to do it, and their fans said, we will burn your stadiums to the ground if you do this. We would much rather play on a rainy, cold night in Stoke than leave the history of this behind. So I would say that even to me proves that the owners of these big-time clubs, they're not a fan of promotion and relegation. Why would you? You're leaving money on the table. But it's that history that keeps it going. So as much as I wish that history was prevalent here in this country, I don't think it's going to happen. But I am interested to see what the USL does and how it pushes MLS further.
Okay, so let's actually get into Orlando City and their season. Go ahead.
Let's do it. Orlando City. It's going to be a huge year for MLS. Fun fact, I don't know if you knew this, but so MLS actually they had their top 2 highest ever amount paid for a player transfer in records for this offseason. So throughout the entire history of the league, the 2 highest paid transfer fees were this offseason. One of them to Atlanta United with Latte Loth coming over from, I believe, was it Middlesbrough? Let me do a little scouting. It was Middlesbrough to Atlanta. Funny that I brought them up earlier. And Kevin Denke coming from Cercle Bruges from Belgium to Cincinnati. So that was an estimated $21.5 million for Emmanuel Latte Loth, who is a kind of a midfielder or center forward, and Kevin Denke, center forward, was $15 million. So MLS is spending money like crazy. I think so. There's this group that they use a system to rank leagues in the world, like the quality of play in the leagues. And MLS cracked the top 10 for the first time ever. We are now the 9th highest ranked league in the world.
Wow.
So we're behind the Premier League, the German League, the Spanish League. I think the Mexican League is right above us. But it's the first time we've ever cracked the top 10. And it's just a testament to the league as a whole and what they're doing, bringing these quality players in. Don't know if either of you know this, but we actually have a new team joining the fold this year. Have you heard about this, Danny?
The new team?
Yeah.
I remember hearing something, but I don't. Who is it?
So they're going to be playing in San Diego at San Diego State University's football stadium,
Right.
Snapdragon Stadium.
They're finally at. We're at 30 now, right?
Yep, we are at 30. So the largest league, and continuing to grow. Attendance is up year over year. It's such a good time to be an MLS fan because we have so many great things happening. And even better, it's a great time to be an Orlando City fan because we had some amazing transfers in. We have some question marks. We had some players who left. But I kind of want to go over what I think is an underrated kind of signing that Orlando City made, which was LAFC's Eduardo Atesta, who is a midfielder. We got him on the cheap. He's coming in. He is a extremely good midfielder in moving the ball. He is super technical. I think he's going to do a lot to open up our offense. where Wilter Cartagena kind of dropped back a little bit, played a little more defense. Unfortunately, he had a torn oblique, and he's going to be out for the year. So I think that it's...
torn oblique, you say?
I think it was a torn oblique. I might be misspeaking here. I might have the Orlando Magic on my mind. But I think that this team is going to be really interesting. I think that the wall is going to be rocking on Saturday tomorrow. And I think that there's a lot of positives to look out on this team. Marcel Palashek, we got from the Croatian League and brought him in for $4.5 million. Super technical winger. He's basically like the antithesis of Facundo Torres. So Facundo Torres was all about pace. He was about kind of feeding him the ball, where Pasalic can kind of create more himself. He's a little more technical with the ball at his feet. So I've been watching a lot of his video. So what I'm expecting to have happen is Pasalic is going to try and isolate himself one-on-one with the defense. He's a much better cutter than Facundo Torres was. He's going to try and cut inside, and he's going to take shots. He has been averaging so many shots in the Croatian League, not quite scoring. So that is the one concern, is his production wasn't at the same clip that Facundo Torres was. How much of that was Facundo Torres taking all of the penalty kicks? Who's to say? And who knows what's going to happen. So I'm super excited about this year. I think Orlando is in the thick of the Eastern Conference, not the first tier of teams. I think the two best teams in MLS, in my opinion, play in the East, in Cincinnati and Miami. So those are the cream of the crop. That's your 1 and 2. And I think just below that is where Orlando, Columbus,
Atlanta.
kind of lives in that space. So I think that there's some really exciting things happening. I think that Atlanta, Charlotte, they all kind of live in that area. I think it's going to be really exciting, and I'm super excited for this season. Eduardo, Danny, any thoughts?
I wish I could be there for the opening match.
Hey, don't let your dreams be dreams.
Yeah, just call it
You're
a
right.
win.
Yeah, you're right. I'll just quit.
Just quit your job.
I will not only call it, I will just quit.
Live in the stadium.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll be like Baker Mayfield in those commercials.
Yeah.
I think
Phantom of the Megaplex, but at the soccer stadium.
Yes.
I am very excited for this season. I've been getting way more and more into the beautiful game after my trip to London. I don't know if you guys knew about that. And so I've just been reading and watching and kind of trying to take part in it and trying to understand it more. I've been playing FIFA. I've been doing it all. And I'm really excited for this season. Adam, we had a conversation a few weeks ago, and I wonder if you still feel this way now that we are at the beginning of the season. It kind of felt like this was a stepping stone year for City. This wasn't they clearly were not going all out and doing any sort of home run swings. It feels like it is more of an evaluation year to kind of see how these new pieces fit together in the team rather than trying to go out there and win it all. Would you agree with that?
I would. Atlanta is kind of my home run swinging team this year. They kind of went out and just said, screw it. We're going to sign a bunch of players, and it's either going to blow up in our face and we're going to be dog shit and have this high salary, or we're going to run over teams. So as much as fans kind of wanted that for Orlando, I think you kind of stay the course. We made the Eastern Conference Finals last year. I think if you look at the beginning of the season last year, it took players so long to gel together. And then I think we lost one match of our final 15. We were 11-3-1. It was something ridiculous. We absolutely dominated the second half of the season.
Well, and we also
that's the thing.
We took a big swing last year in the signing of Luis Muriel. That was a big swing. That was we were going out, we're getting an accomplished striker who can go in there and score goals, and clearly that did not work out, and it felt like the season really turned around when we decided, hey, we're going to move you to the bench. and we're not going to be playing through you anymore. And that seems like to have been a big part. And so Orlando's not necessarily afraid of taking those big swings, but I think there may be perhaps a little hamstrung. There's also a lot of rumor about them buying out, is it Araujo, out of his DP slot and opening up another DP slot?
Yeah, and something interesting else that's happening. Today we sent, I think it was $250,000 in general allocated money to the LA Galaxy. We got $200,000 back. I'm sorry, we sent $250,000. We got $200,000 back, and their first round draft pick next year. I believe we have 3 or 4 first round picks next year.
We sent them an international slot.
Oh, that's right. We sent them an international slot. We traded some allocation money earlier in the week, which this is the joys of MLS, is keeping track of all of the different buckets of money that your team has and just sending it. People are trading each other $5 for another $5 next year. It's insane. But it's kind of what makes MLS MLS. I think what we are seeing is the transfer window doesn't close until April. So I think Orlando is evaluating what we have, evaluating the pieces, saying, okay, what do we need? And going out and getting the I don't want to say budget, because that makes the owner sound cheap. And they're not. They go out and they spend money. The Wolves have proven that. But going out and making a signing to kind of fit that need. Because I think what happens a lot of times is you have these teams that go out and make these big swings, and it takes a while for these players to gel and learn how to play, almost more so than any other sport, because the field is so large. You really have to be able to play with your team. And I think when you have a bunch of new players, that kind of, slows down teams playing to their full potential. So I would expect Orlando to make 1 or 2 more moves before the transfer window closes, but I think they're going to be incremental moves. I don't think it's going to be anything major.
Probably more depth than anything,
which we desperately need, especially on the back line. And I would love to see another goalkeeper.
Yeah, especially after letting go of their backup over the summer. It feels like that's a position of need in Orlando, because Gillespie is going to get called up for international play, and he's going to miss games. He does every year. And so you need someone to back him up. You need someone who you can trust to back him up. And that's an unfortunate position that we are in. We pay a lot of money to our goalie here in Orlando City, and that is just the reality of our team. We pay a lot of money to Pedro Gallesi. We kind of bounced it around last year, but is he the next kind of guy that kind of needs to go, or maybe not necessarily needs to get paid this? Because he's he produces. He's a great goalie, but can you get 85-90% of that production at a significantly cheaper cost, and then also be able to pay another player the kind of money that you're paying your goalie?
So Pedro Gallese is 34 years old. Goalies kind of age differently than other players. They're kind of like the quarterbacks of soccer. Like Brad Guzan, who is Atlanta United's goalkeeper, is 40. So they kind of have a longer shelf life. So Pedro is not outside of quote unquote his peak. So I think you could probably move him after this season. I don't know exactly what his contract details are. I'm pulling them up right now. But I mean, it's hard to argue with his performance. I mean, he has played fantastically. Let's see, how much time do we have left with Pedro? So he is ranked. Let's see. I know this is exciting. You know what? I'm gonna keep looking, and nope, contract expires the end of this year. So he has one more season with us, and I expect this to be the last season with him, because on the wings we have a 22-year-old goalkeeper named Javier Otero. He's Venezuelan. He's kind of come up through the academy system. He played youth soccer for Orlando, has been on OCB. And let me tell you about this guy. He is 6'6", an absolute monster in net. And everything that I'm hearing from my sources inside of like the training camp is that they love this guy. They absolutely love the way he plays. They say he has a cannon of an arm. They say that he has really good awareness. He's inexperienced, but I think that he's kind of being groomed as our next goalkeeper, which is great because if you can get more homegrown players, more players on cheap contracts, that just allows you to spend money elsewhere to go get goal production.
I wonder with this season kind of where City are going to end up, mostly because it feels like because so many teams went out and made big splashy moves, it feels like it's a very volatile beginning to the season. And whereas last season, it felt like City was one of those teams that was like on the other side of like trying to figure out how all their pieces are going to fit together. I think with the changes that they've made, especially because the players that they added are very boppy players. They're very players of the system of the coach that we have. Like they're going to fit in almost seamlessly, it feels like. You know, Muriel was not a player that was not a boppy player, but these guys, Pachulik and Aldesta, both are. They both are like 100% boppy players. And so you got to figure that, you know, as far as continuity is concerned, the advantage of continuity are going to go City side. Did you get a chance to watch the preseason match against Inter Miami over at Raymond James?
I did. I really liked what I saw. Of course, it was a circus. It's always a circus when we play Miami. You know, there's always some things that happen that you're like, oh, interesting. That definitely, you know, we've talked about it before with the NBA about like the Stars whistle.
I mean, the Messi whistle is like a level above.
Yeah, the Messi whistle is crazy.
They gotta clean that up.
You know, it's great for the league. I understand that completely, but it's rough to watch. Yeah. But no, I thought that the team played really well. I was really upset to see them concede that late goal because I loved as a true hater when the camera would pan up in the crowd and you would see a bunch of kids in Messi jerseys and they just looked absolutely miserable. That this Swedish IKEA-looking dude named Robin Jansson was keeping Messi in his pocket and was just doing everything he could to keep Messi from doing anything. It was fantastic. And then they scored the goal and everybody left 2-2. And then did you see the very end where they were like, oh, we might go to penalties? And then both teams just kind of went, nah, we're good. We're good. Actually, we don't need to do this. And they just left.
I think we looked. Another team that has had the benefit of continuity is Miami. Miami is almost completely the same as last year, and why would you change it if, you know, with as many points as they got last year? And I think we looked like we could beat them. I think if you exclude the garbage time in which you had all of your academy and third-string players out there, Orlando City won that game. Now, it was a close affair. It was not an easily won game. As you said, there was tomfoolery afoot. However, City didn't look like they didn't belong. You know, you think about the first time they played against Miami last year. I don't know if you remember that game, but it was not good.
I do.
It was.
Nope, it was awful.
It was 5-0 Miami. It was really, really, really bad. And this year, especially right there, we look like we belong. I also think we kind of discovered something. One, it's one of Miami's weaknesses, but I think we discovered something about this team in transition, that there is a real strength there with the kind of players that we have to really take advantage of teams in transition, especially with the kind of system that that our coach likes to play. And so how much of it do you think of Orlando City is built around because it doesn't feel like Miami is built around Messi, right? It is built around, it is Messi's team. It is built around how do you maximize Messi. Orlando is not built that way. It is built around like the system of Oscar Pereira, right? It is built around his system and what player is going to best fit his system. It is not like a player that you build around. You're almost like building around the coach.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the strength, and people complain about it all the time when they talk about Orlando. They talk about how boring Orlando plays soccer because they don't have that flashy, they don't have that Messi that goes out and wins one-on-one dribbles. But that's not the way Poppy likes to play. Poppy has his team sit back. They kind of are calculated. They play good defense. And then when the opposing team pushes up a little too high, we counterattack. Mm-hmm. We're down the field. We're on the wing. We're absolutely blazing downfield. And then we score. And then when we're up 1-0, you know what we do? We sit on you. And we smother you like a blanket. And it doesn't matter if we win 1-0 or 5-0. It's the same thing to us. So it makes for not sexy football sometimes. But I think at the end of the day, when you're on the wall, 3 points is 3 points.
3 points is 100%.
Yep. So I think it's going to be fun. And Edward Atesta is kind of that middle ground. He kind of plays the way Poppy likes, where he's like super confident with the ball. He's super careful with the ball. He's not going to turn over the ball a lot. But he kind of has some little creativity we saw with LAFC, where he kind of makes things happen. So on one hand, it's going to be exciting to see how different the offense looks with him pulling the strings. Secondly, we need to make sure that we are sure on the back line, because he does have a tendency, if something happens, to be caught with his pants down too far up on the field. So I'm hearing really good things about the gelling between Robin Janssen and David Bracalo, which I'm happy to hear. We didn't get to see Bracalo too much last season. Had some injury issues with him. And we needed Rodrigo Schlegel to step up for a lot of minutes, which now we're not going to need, hopefully, which is going to be good for my blood pressure.
Thank God, man.
And I love Rodrigo Schlegel. He's done amazing things for the club. Sure. He is a fan favorite for a reason. And bring him off the bench.
Yeah,
bring him off the bench,
100%.
Please, for 5 minutes, and then we go home. But no, I'm super excited for the season. I'm gonna kind of give you my my predictions. Then I would like to see how y'all feel. I have. So how do you want me to do this? Do you want me to go MLS Cup, who I think is gonna make the final, and then who I think is gonna win, and then where I think Orlando's gonna finish?
Yes.
Or do you want? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the final is going to be Miami, LA, Galaxy. I think they're getting Ricky Pugh back. He just makes that offense click. If it's not Galaxy, it's LAFC. But I think it'll be Miami and one of the LA teams. Which is super convenient for television, Don Garber. You're going to love that. I think Orlando finishes 5th in the East. So I think we're a solid playoff team. I think we start the season strong. I think we do the typical Orlando thing where we have a really good start to the season, and then about halfway through the season, the wheels start to come off a little bit, and we have a shaky summer. And then we end the season strong. We finish 5th. I think we make it to the semifinals. And unfortunately, I think the Messi whistle bites us in the ass.
I think the league is desperate for Miami to win a championship. And I think, because if they don't, this entire experiment blows up in their face. They have to win at least one, right? They have to win, or else this whole thing blows up in their face, and they will not.
They can't sell T-shirts.
Exactly, and so I think Miami ends up probably winning it all this year. I think, one, they have the talent, obviously, and two, they have the backing of literally the league behind them, which is an awful thing to say as a sports fan, to know that your league is backing an individual player more than anyone else. But I'm an NBA fan, and I've been watching it with LeBron James for years, so who cares? So yeah, that's I'm with you. I think Miami ends up taking it all, but I do think City is going to surprise a lot of people, because I think it doesn't matter how many splashy signings you make, continuity is so important in any sport, in any team, and continuity is what wins you those random games that puts you at the top of a table or at the top of a standings. It is what
absolutely.
It is what gets you those few extra you need to kind of break away from the rest of the pack.
Yeah, it's that familiarity, that knowing that Ivan Angulo likes to shoot on his left foot. Maybe I'll put this more to the left when I'm dropping it in for him. That way he has a chance to bang this one home in the 90th minute. And we win this game against, Columbus 2-1 on a random Wednesday night in Columbus. It's, I think you hit the nail on the head there with the continuity. I think that's this team's strength. I think we're going to be sound defensively. I think we're going to get into a lot of dog fights. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm super excited to see the league grow again this year. Danny, do you have any soccer insights or wisdom for us?
No, you've convinced me though that it's Miami's to lose this year.
Yeah, 100%. They're gonna sell jerseys with the MLS Cup patch on it, and people are gonna go crazy. Listen. I hate Inter Miami. I despise. As an Orlando fan, you have to. I'm a fan of the league, and I understand the importance of having a team in Miami. I wish they would have never made that mistake, but I understand it. They came out with the Miami Dolphin aqua and orange alternate kit.
Oh no,
that looks really nice.
It's the one. It's like the floral one.
Yeah,
dude. Unfortunately,
it looks really nice.
God damn, what is? It's like the Heat with their damn Miami Vice jersey. Like, god damn it! Like, why does that jersey have to be nice?
It looks really nice.
Or like
I'm really upset about it.
Okay, they made up for it with the Heat culture ones.
I really don't like the Raptors, but that Raptor dunking like Vince Carter jersey in that court, 10 out of 10, man.
Yeah. Something about them purple jerseys.
I think that's going to
be... We really need to return to the purple and teal heyday. When I guess like the 90s teal was really having
like the
its
teal
moment.
The teal Grizzlies and
the Hornets.
Well, hey, if you want to see a purple and teal team, the Orlando Pride, who play at Inter and Co Stadium. I don't know if you've heard of this, but they won the NWSL last year.
And they in the offseason they only got stronger. They literally,
the offseason they only got better.
It's crazy.
And the NWSL, they're going to be playing in the NWSL Challenge Cup here in a few weeks, and the She Believes Cup is going on right now. America absolutely killed Colombia a few nights ago, so women's soccer is also back, and you should support Orlando Pride, support Orlando City, support OCB and MLS Next Pro. Will family, if you're listening, send us to any of those games as reporters.
Be happy to.
We will bring Poppy Beefy King, and that'll be the first time he's ever had that, I'm sure. I'll make him do a lot, like one bite.
One bite, everybody knows the rules.
Poppy, one bite, everybody knows the rules. Every menu item at Beefy King. He's like, please let me go home. Like, no. You have 15 more sandwiches to eat. No, but I think it's going to be a great year. I'm really excited, and I'm excited to be on the wall with y'all.
Yeah, well, I guess that's going to do it for this episode of the Central Florida Sportscast. If you want to follow the show on Twitter and Blue Sky, you can do so at CF Sportscast. Send us an email, cfsportscast@gmail.com. But that's going to do it for myself, for Adam, for Danny. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Farewell.
See ya. Vamos, Orlando.
Vamos.
Vamos.